I think that this idea is an idea that's gaining traction among the Israeli public, and I can tell you why.
Please give the question.
Oh, I'm sorry. The question was this whole idea of conflict management versus conflict resolution, that you might not be able to solve it, you can manage it better. To what degree is that idea gaining acceptance in Israel? And I think it's gaining a great deal of acceptance in Israel. And to illustrate that, there's a guy named Ari Shavit. Ari Shavit is a writer from Haaretz, which is a very left-wing Israeli newspaper, and he comes from the left to the center, and he himself has said the same thing since the breakdown of the talks. He's written that we can't solve this thing right now. It's not going to happen. We've tried for 20 years. The gaps is too big. Let's try to just manage it better. That's on the left. On the right, you have guys like the foreign minister, Avigdor Lieberman, who's been saying the same thing now for years, that you can't solve it. Forget solving it. Lower the bar. Lower the bar. There are problems out there in the world that have not been solved, right? Japan and China, India and China, they have border disputes. They're able to live with them. Let's live with this border dispute, but let's live with it better. Let's find a way to manage it. Let's improve the lives of the Palestinians without endangering the lives of the Israelis. There are ways that you can do it that you don't. Doesn't have to be full peace or full war, right? There is a middle ground, and I think what these 20 years of Oslo has shown is that you set the bar too high, right? You thought that you were going to sign an agreement on the White House lawn, and it was going to be like the Japanese signing with the Americans on some Air Force carrier in the Pacific, and you're going to have peace, and it's going to filter down. It's not going to happen. This conflict is too deeply entrenched. It's too emotional. It's too long, right? And it's not going to change overnight. There also, and this is something that I don't think people abroad necessarily understand why Netanyahu has done this. Netanyahu's made a big issue out of this idea of the Palestinians recognizing Israel as the nation state of the Jewish people. And why is that so important? Because I think if you ask Netanyahu, he'll say it's important because the issue right now isn't necessarily a Palestinian state. The issue is a Jewish state. And the Arabs have never come to recognize Jewish right to be anywhere in the land. You can argue about where. You can argue the borders. But until they recognize that you have a right to be there, forget it. And we're not there yet. Neither the Palestinians nor the Arabs have necessarily given the Israelis the confidence to believe that they've accepted us, right? That they don't think that they can just run us out. And that's going to take time. So in the meantime, what do? In the meantime, try to manage it better, right? You're not going to resolve it. It has ideological, it has religious roots. You're not going to resolve it, but you can manage it perhaps better. And I think that idea is gaining traction in Israel. What's the problem? Only in Israel, right? I don't think that it's gaining traction, definitely not with the Palestinians. I don't think it's gaining traction with the Europeans at all. And also, I think there's a limited acceptance of the idea in Washington, who still has this kind of vision that you can snap your finger and this thing's going to be solved.